Look, it's a couch.
Looks comfortable.
And it's in space.
Cool.
Couch in space!
Nearly got there. Hey, thanks for joining us on another fantastic edition of Couch in Space. I'm here with my very good friend and acquaintance, Colin MCRAE. You might have known him around the broadcast industry for many years, around TVNZ,
Yes.
NZBC, you started in that. Colin was also in a band, which I'm very excited about, hence I got out the little sticks and
Yes,
the little
I had
guitar.
a drum kit then.
You had a drum
I
kit
did,
then?
I had a drum kit then, a long time ago.
And I hear you're paying for it now?
With tinnitus. Yeah. No, I blame the lead guitarist who, he had his amp right behind me. He was very good.
okay.
A guy called Al Dawson. One of his claims to fame, which has got
Yes.
nothing to do with this, is he claims that he used to play in a pub owned by Russell Crowe's parents, so somewhere out in
really?
Auckland, and he taught Russell a few chords to get him going on the guitar. So there you go. You shake the hand that shook the hand that
Wow.
shook Russell Crowe. Now do you feel better?
No, not really. That's like 4 degrees of
Oh,
separation. I
two, I
expected
think.
2. I expected you to know Russell.
There you go.
It's funny because didn't Russell Crowe?
He had a band, yeah.
Yeah, wasn't he like following some guy around when he first started
Don't know.
in the
Yeah.
music industry? I thought I read something like that about
Okay.
that.
Might be mild, mate.
Anyway, so before we get on to broadcasting, and Colin's very knowledgeable and also a very good reporter. I think you've trained how many people in the art of reporting?
Thousands, yeah.
Thousands, yeah. I'm really interested to know, about your youth. And so you didn't start in broadcasting? Were you a musician before?
Well, no, and we're going right back to the 60s, and when I was in high school, and we played all around Hawke's Bay and various parties, and it was before pub music. But we played at dances, and the top hat was a dance hall and what have you. And we got into the Battle of the Bands, Hawke's Bay.
Oh, wow. Hawke's
But
Bay,
it was, it was sort of like the Academy Awards, and we won it. And so one of the prizes was to go into the local radio station in town and record half a dozen songs. And so I'd been into this little studio 3 or 4 times, and I was just fascinated by a radio studio, and it just looked like the sort of place I would like to work in. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right, okay.
But anyway, in the meantime, there were no courses like there are now. You either started journalism, for example, on a newspaper. I don't think the radio station had much in the way of news programs. So I went off to uni in Wellington and Christchurch, and by the end of all of that,
Studying?
I did a BA in English and history, and just a good liberal arts degree. And by the end, somewhere in the early 70s, there were more opportunities. Obviously, if you had a degree, you might have the gumption to ring up, and I did about a dozen papers, and 2 responded, and one of them offered me a job, the old Timaru Herald. They had a high turnover of people down there in those days, so there was always
It wasn't because of your awesome credentials?
No. But then I got back there, and there was a private radio network in those days, and the Christchurch one was Radio Avon.
Okay.
And so I had a couple of 3 years at that, and then got into TV in Wellington, Auckland, Australia, back to Auckland, and here we are.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So it was news, current affairs, sport when TV3 started up here.
Yeah.
Nearly 30 years ago next year.
Wow.
I took them a proposal for a sports sort of magazine program, because I didn't think they'd have any rights for sport, because TVNZ had it all. But they had some programming, and but they said, look, no, we don't want what you're offering, which was a sort of a magazine lighter look at the world of sport.
Yeah.
But would you like a job? And I said, oh yeah, what is it? They
People
said,
throwing jobs at you.
head of
Good old
sport,
days.
head of sport for
Yeah.
TV3.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't sweep the floor over at TVNZ in their sports department. It was, in fairness to them, it was very commentator heavy, and they did a lot of, rugby, football, yachting, and tennis, and all the rest of that. And so, the mainstay of their stable, if you like, were good guys like Keith Quinn and people like that. So there was they hadn't gone down that magazine track quite so much.
Right.
But anyway, that got me into TV3 and all those sorts of programs.
Wow.
And over the year, I spent 10 years at Māori TV on Native Affairs and doing
Yeah.
3 years of that on Anzac Day, which is all good fun.
Jeez,
So yeah, it's been great.
And television, I'm kind of like you. When I started after high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But I was lucky enough to go to the local TV station there. And as soon as I walked into a TV studio, I thought, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what I want.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I want to get into this. I want to be able to tweak those lights and make a stage set up and
Yeah.
put some programming together. And that's what started me on my journey.
Yes, yeah. Well, I came at it through journalism, as I say, the newspaper briefly,
But
then
you,
into
same
radio.
with you with the
Yeah,
radio station.
being
Hey,
in-
you see a studio and you think,
Yes.
you see so much potential, don't you? And then you do the reality of it. And
Exactly.
now look at you. You're in
Yeah.
space. You've got the
Yeah,
earth
that's why
behind
I'm
you.
holding on here.
You can't tell really, but you know, there's a nice sign up there.
Yeah.
It's a couch. It's a comfortable place.
Good.
And no one can hear you
Well,
scream.
we know where we've been, but where are we going to is...
Well,
is-
that's the thing, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? And where we're going to, especially with the media and content industry, it's an interesting time at the moment.
is.
How do you feel about that?
Well, it's crossroads, but it has been for a little while now. I mean, the number of sort of legitimate, respectable, credible organisations that can earn enough money to pay for journalists to research and report and filter news into a coherent read or digestion every day
Yeah.
is getting harder and harder. And you know, everyone's coming up with this so-called fake news, and you've got this idiot Jones in America now who seems to make a living out of telling everyone that the Twin Towers was
everything
a
else is
government did it, and
Right.
then he's got the Sandy Hook tragedy with all those little children were shot, and he's saying, oh no, that was all enacted. The parents are actors. And then when these kids in Florida, 17 kids or something, shot in high school,
Yeah.
he said, oh no, those kids who came on TV afterwards, the survivors, they've clearly been trained in how to express grief, and because they happen to be young and very, very passionate and articulate. And so, and he knows this bullshit, he has to, but he does, he's an oaf, but there's people who seem to believe it.
Yeah. That's the scary bit, isn't it? It's like the integrity. Who's got integrity? I mean, you can go in and say something and it can be true or not true. It doesn't matter because there's such an information overload everywhere. You're going to have some people believe it and some people not. It's
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
but there's no clear majority though, is there?
Well,
so the truth gets thinner and thinner.
The good news is there's lots of options.
That's right, yeah.
But the bad news is all and I don't pretend to understand the mechanics of the modern media world, but with all these logarithms or whatever they're called, and they will see what you looked at last night or last week or 5 years ago, and all of a sudden they're selecting similar stories and feeding you a diet of the stuff you're already inclined to see. So you're not going to get an alternative view. You're not going to get new stories. You're going to get just an ongoing mishmash of the sort of stories you've been seeking out. And then you're going to get advertisements attached to those screens that are coming at you because they know that you're really old and you're male and you live in New Zealand and
That's
you've
right,
got
yeah.
a dog and 2 cats or whatever it is. And so they feed you this stuff. And so I think the trick is, and it's I mean, I do it anyway, but the trick is for young ones is to find a credible source of news
Yep.
and sort of stick with it. And if you're in the States, you've got CNN versus Fox. So Fox is terribly right wing and CNN is left wing. You've got the Wall Street Journal, you've got the Washington Post. So if you were there, I guess you'd try and find one. But if you had half a brain, you'd read both, wouldn't you?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I heard Joe Rogan comment on that, during the elections, watching CNN and Fox. He didn't say he preferred one or the other, but in order to get an idea of a vague truth, you have to watch both and somehow put the pieces together yourself.
yeah.
You can't just go to one source anymore
No.
because you're bombarded. And within that, it's a lot of work to find the truth, isn't
Well,
it?
exactly.
And to be honest, aren't most people lazy? They just want to be told something, react to it, and be done with it.
Well, and a lot of them are getting their so-called news from Stephen Colbert, who's very, very funny and very, very clever. What sort of staggers me a little bit when I watch him from time to time is that stories, if you follow news, and having worked in it all these years, like you sort of do, and so we're on the other side of the world, and he'll start talking about an event that's happened in America that day. Well, I'm familiar with it, but it seems that half the audience watching his show, it's the first time they're hearing about it.
Yeah.
You know, something stupid that Trump or one of his mates has said. So I don't know how closely people are following news anymore, and it's just
Where
not
do
a
you
good
get
thing.
most of your news from these days?
Well, it's Radio New Zealand. It's always a good, reliable source, very, very authoritative. And, you know, people like Guy Nespiter and Susie Ferguson and John Campbell, who's been there, they conduct very searching interviews with the newsmakers of the day, and I'd recommend that to anyone. We subscribe online to the New Zealand Herald.
Okay, yep.
And I buy a couple of magazines across the week, like the English sort of right-of-centre Spectator, but I check out the allegedly left-of-centre BBC and The Guardian online. I go to the Sydney Morning Herald and use up my 5 views a month,
Okay.
1 view a week sort of thing. We're there. I mean, there's only so much you can afford to do, but I think you've got to get a taste of it, and if you like one or the other and you can afford it. I mean, the New Zealand Herald now is, I think, $10 a month to get the online.
Yeah.
But I'm told they make their money not from me spending $10 a month, but from them selling the knowledge they now have about me as a consumer of their product.
Really?
Yeah, that may be fake news, people. But
You heard the fake here first.
but the value to them
Yeah.
isn't the subscription. Well, I'm sure they take it. They subscribe to a lot of people, but that they gather up all this information on, you know, who's getting it, what sort of ads they look at, what stories they focus on, how long they spent on this story versus that story. And if you don't read the car parts, you read the rugby bits, or if you know, I don't know what they make of me. I'm always checking the death notices. So make sure
you probably get funeral plans and all that sort of stuff through
make sure
your
my
Facebook.
name's not there on a given day. So, you know, someone is then prepared to pay them money for that information so they can market their products.
But isn't that just the sign of the times, how everything is now changing?
It is.
You know,
it
the
is.
model of television, of radio, of newspapers. I think there's still a place for all of these, but not as was before.
No.
So people are consuming not just one news source, there are 3 or 4. I mean, you're saying you get yours from radio, online, magazines. It's
That's right. And everyone's got to be a bit of a specialist in everything. So, for example, News Hub has got its TV, it's tied up with its radio, and it's got a website. So you got, and then you've got a newspaper like the Herald, NZME, and so they're tied up with radio stations and with websites, and then you've got radio stations who put cameras in their radio.
What about Stuff? Online portal that now has their own video content.
I think
newspapers have their own video content.
Yeah, and I think that the Stuff outfit has got about 40 videographers spread around the country, and you know, so it's assumed that if the whale beaches up north, they'll and indeed Radio New Zealand, they'll go and take at least photographs of the stuff and put it up online. And so John Campbell on Checkpoint, his program goes live on Face TV, which you get through either Freeview or Sky Channel 83 or something, and you know, and it's a modest production because they unfortunately haven't had much money to do a lot with yet.
Yes.
But there it is. It's on screen. It's online. It's on the air, and you can get it through Facebook, and you can get it through this and that. So everyone's doing it, and you've got to do it.
Yeah. You do.
The trick is to do it. So you're asking journalists, in a way, you're asking journalists to do a lot more than us old folks used to do, because you know they'll go and do a crash on the motorway or a fire out somewhere in Albany. They deliver a story to the radio, they deliver to their website, and then they'll, if it's getting near TV news time, they'll serve up a story for that. So they're doing a lot. The old days of doing a story and heading off to the pub and going in again tomorrow, long gone.
They are really, even for programmers, television. You know, it's not like networks just want the program. they need all this other content for web,
Yeah.
and even getting the rights for on demand. So it's not just for local production. And
Yeah.
it's very complicated.
And so the making of it's different, and the consumption of it's different. When I started, even a bit 12 years ago, at Mighty TV, it had just gone up on air, and I went in to help them for 6 weeks, and 10 years later I was... I never left them, they left me. So
Oh, did they?
They went out to South
You'll be
Auckland.
back.
So, but I had a lot of fun there and working on native affairs.
Yeah.
And when we started that program, it was such a novelty and it had such a lot of support from within Māoridom that I think on a given, I think the first lot went out on Sunday nights. We'd make it on Friday, would broadcast Sunday, and you could get 100,000 people tuning in to watch that primetime program. It moved to Monday night and it was still live, or it became live. And so all that unpredictability of live TV, and we could get 80, 90, 100,000 people at least dipping in. They wouldn't all watch the whole hour uninterrupted. And so over the decade, those numbers have dwindled. And again, I stand to be corrected by Mighty TV, but on a given Tuesday for the half hour they now do, it might be 5,000 who watch or dip into that half hour. But when they chop up the individual stories and put them online, you can get 60,000 people watching that one 5-minute story. Because it goes around like wildfire. That's
And how
great.
powerful is that, though, isn't it?
So my theory around all that is that you wouldn't wait till Tuesday night to put everything out as new. I think they should be making stories, and the minute they're finished, put them up online.
Right.
And hopefully get a firestorm around this story or that story. And then on the Tuesday night, you've got that half hour. You might have 3 of your stories have already been out there for 3 or 4 days, plus a new story.
Yes.
And so you have what they might call an omnibus of, earlier this week we've put up online the story of...
These are the developments.
Yep. But let's have a look now at that story, which is...
Because you're reverse engineering it, hey? So if your show, say, is on a Friday, but you're putting news bits out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and people are getting hooked onto it, and they say, I want to know more about what happened to blah, blah. I know that I'm going to get an update on that story at the end of that cycle of the week, and that would be added value then, isn't it?
Well,
what's the value in watching something that's programmed for you by a network at the moment?
That's right. The other thing too that happened was that there were stories you wouldn't do because you knew that by the time you waited till Monday night, something that had happened on a marae somewhere down the line on Saturday, a big hui down the line. Well, the opposition on TV1 and TV3 and the radio and the newspapers had a very good go at it. So you're looking for a new angle for Monday night, whereas you could go and do that story and put it up on your website Saturday night.
Right. Yeah.
And it's something new and different on Sunday night. And then again on Monday night, or Tuesday night as it now is, you can say, right, well, as you saw over the weekend, blah, 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 and let's have a look at some of that. You wouldn't be expected to make 2 full lots of programs, so, but you could have someone who's a party to the story, or a couple of people debating the issue in the studio. It's just another way of doing it. But everyone's accessing this stuff online, and everyone of the audience that advertisers are interested in, the whatever they are, the 25 to 54s, and certainly the 14 to 40-year-olds are all watching it in a handheld device.
Yes.
So the days, which I still do, is to go home and turn on the TV at 5:55 and watch the news. I'm still doing it.
Really?
But not everyone is.
See, I watch the news, but not like you, because I have a problem with my aerial. So getting the signal into my TV sucks, basically. I can't watch free-to-air TV just because the area doesn't work properly. But however, they stream it live. Like TVNZ's got a live stream. Yeah. And the beauty is, if I want to watch the news, I can tap on the news and watch it, either watch it live, or if I come home and half an hour later, I can watch it live, but from the beginning.
Right.
So I still catch up on all of that. And having the live stream that goes to Apple TV or something.
And you can scoot through. I'm not interested in that category.
I don't scoot though,
You watch
Do
it
you?
all?
Yeah. It's
well,
like
I've seen so many stories over the years. I mean, even a thick newspaper. Righto, car crash. Oh yeah, forest fire. Yeah, where's that? some poor fellow's got a battle here, or someone's built a wall in front of his house there. Yep. So I can skim quite quickly.
Right.
And I have it on very good authority from an acquaintance of mine that the brain retains more information if you read it off paper than off a screen. And I think the habit of the way people scroll through stuff, you never settle on too much.
No, you
and
don't.
Whereas if you went to a town like New York, and the New York Times was available on the corner, and I've done this and thoroughly enjoyed it. The challenge then is how you're going to read it all. It's going to take you 3 hours, and you're engaging in stories, maybe because you're in a foreign country, but there's fascinating stories, very well written, and it's on a page, and you turn it around and go again. I just love that.
Yeah.
Call me old-fashioned.
You are old-fashioned.
Thank you.
But it's good. I agree. I mean, I like sitting through the paper too, but I'm not sure if you grew up with having a device to get all your information. I guess a paper would just be tedious, wouldn't it?
And it begs the question: how much information are you getting? So.
Or how much do you actually want?
How much do you need?
Well, you read the headlines.
Make informed decisions, I suppose.
I can't remember the last time I read a full article. I read the headline. I like the headline. I read the first couple of paragraphs. Okay, kind of interesting. I keep reading a bit, but usually halfway through, okay, I've got enough information. Who, what, why, when, and then skip the rest really.
Well, I think and again, folks, this could be fake news. I'll be corrected.
Hey, it's a couch in space. It doesn't get any more real than this, okay?
But I have a recollection of being told, or having read many years ago, that the Times of London had and probably still has its news on the front page, and certainly many years ago, every story could only be like 10 sentences, like 100 words, 10-word sentences. If you couldn't tell your story, the outbreak of war, the Boer War, or whatever it was going to be, or the collapse of the government, in 100 words, you weren't trying, so. So maybe we're back to that.
I've got my dog here growling at the cameraman. Dog in space. Hey, Colin, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. 20 minutes is up. Yeah, it flies by, doesn't it? We're in space, it's like, I can't afford commercial breaks yet. But anyway, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much. Hope to have you back. And
so that was the first couple of years of my career. And
that's right. There's still another
next week. Let me talk
57 years to cover.
Let me talk about the 1970s.
That's right, exactly. I just want to, keen to chat to you about the band and everything like that, and all things music, which is something I really love.
We weren't exactly the Rolling Stones, but when you're a schoolboy in Napier, you felt like you were part of it.
That's right, yeah, exactly.
It was great fun.
Hey, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Good.
Thanks for watching Couch in Space. And there we go.
Dog on Couch in Space.
Dog on Couch in Space. Usually when she's up, I get her to float in the background, and now she's come back.
Amazing how she can walk backwards.